Welcome to Ghost Education 101, where curiosity meets experience and the doors to the entire paranormal landscape are finally open. Hosted by Dr. Heather Leigh and Dr. Tiffany Frazier, this series is built for everyone who wants to understand the unexplained the right way. Whether you're just stepping into the unknown or you've been investigating for years, this is the place where you can sharpen your approach, deepen your understanding, and cut through the misconceptions that have overrun this field for far too long. Each episode walks you through the full spectrum of paranormal activity. Classic hauntings, intelligent spirits, cryptids, elemental beings, poltergeist phenomena, and the modern challenges investigators face today. We break it all down. The science, the method, and the mystery, without dumbing it down and without drifting into theatrics. Grounded in research, history, and real-world investigation, Ghost Education 101 is your classroom, your laboratory, and your gateway into the most compelling unexplained experiences on record. Learn, question, discover. Welcome to Ghost Education 101. Now, here are your hosts, Dr. Heather Leigh and Dr. Tiffany Frazier.
Good evening, everybody. It is good to be back at Ghost Education 101. And I'm sorry that Heather is not here yet. Hopefully she can pop in and join us in a little bit, but she had an emergency with her dog. So she's currently at the emergency vet. So we're sending everybody some good healing thoughts, because that is never fun. And I really hope her dog is okay. Tonight we have a very special guest joining us. He is an American historian. He is an author, a fine art photographer. He's also a television personality, and he is best known for his appearances on the television series Haunted Discoveries and Haunted Discoveries Family Spirits. He's also known for his book, Haunted by History, Volume 1. And in addition to his photography and writing, our guest is known as a property historian for several historic hotels in Southern California. He has researched and documented the histories of sites such as the Aztec Hotel in Monrovia, the Mayan Revival style landmark listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Everybody, please welcome Craig Owens to the show. Thank you for being on tonight.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's how I met your co-host, actually, was she was on an episode of Haunted Discoveries Family Spirits, and it was, she had a fascinating story to tell.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
I interviewed her for the show, and then I think she had me like write an intro or something for an upcoming book or something. So did that.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. And
now
that
I'm
episode
here.
just went live last week.
The book did? Or
No,
the episode did. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
It
everybody,
did.
we'll get a link. Heather has the link on her page, so we'll make sure we get that link put up, and you guys can go and check it out. So tell us about yourself. You have quite the resume, and so tell us,
Thanks.
we always asked it. I like to ask people, what got you started with the paranormal, specifically, but what was that spark that happened for you, that, because you're a historian, I think, by trade, like that's your thing. So like, what is it about history, specifically haunted locations, that just really get you going?
Well, that's a loaded question. There's not like any one spark. It was like several sparks. I always joke that it chose me. I didn't choose it. But ultimately, there were definitely some markers along the way. And if we're going to be talking history, and we're going to be talking tours, and trying to separate fact from fiction, I would say that I started rounding the corner in that around 1996, and that was there was this brand new ghost investigative company that had just set up shop
Mhm.
in Los Angeles. They had their headquarters at a haunted movie theater on Hollywood Boulevard, and the guy at the time said that he had a PhD in parapsychology,
Mm.
and we were going to visit for a whopping $45, which was a lot to me at that time. We
Yeah.
were going to see like 3-4 places, and I was excited. It was their very first one. It was the juggernaut launch of this new business. I thought, how cool is that to do a ghost hunting tour? Well, we got to see some cool places, and maybe not. I had a
Mhm.
paranormal experience, but what was setting me off was the fact that they were just kind of making up stuff, and they were going with psychics, and psychic.
Can you turn the car off?
Hey there,
There she
brother.
is.
So one of the locations is actually was the Alexandria Hotel, which now I am the historian and I give tours there.
Mhm.
But in 1996, they were taking me around to a couple of rundown rooms in the building. And one, they were saying that there was some kind of child molestation spirit, and the molester was Charlie Chaplin, and the
Mm.
ghost was a little boy. And I guess that angered me because I knew better. You know,
Yeah.
knew better.
Yeah.
Chaplin's like one of the most documented comedians. And, as I started kind of pinpointing her, you know,
Mhm.
cornering her with
Yeah.
questioning, like, where are you getting this? I'm like turning total detective.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah.
her excuse was, well, that's just what the spirit told me.
Mhm.
And
And your alarms are
so
just going off
that
and
was in that was in 96. And of
yeah.
course it took a while for me to get around to it. But I don't like being if I'm going to spend $45 and investigate, haunted places, I don't want to be like lied to or deliberately misled.
Yeah.
And so and in LA, this is a very common thing. We have so many ghost tours, we have so many people, so many influencers, they're all falling all over each other. And um, they are disseminating false information all the time.
Yeah. We've
All the
seen
time.
that so much.
I even
Yeah.
saw one yesterday. I won't name the name, but they give like a tour,
Mhm.
and they did a big post on the Hollywood Knickerbocker. Almost every story they had was wrong.
Oh, no.
Was urban legend, and yet this was one that tried to get me to endorse them a few years ago,
Mm.
and I didn't because I don't endorse anyone unless I fact check them too.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so I may or may not just put up something on Instagram, not referencing them, but just like lay
Mhm.
down the facts and actually
Yeah.
attach like newspaper articles to prove it so that they're not just saying, well, what does he know? He's just an old guy in a hat talking. But you actually put the proof where it is. And then, I have had an impact in LA. Probably
Mhm.
had an impact beyond it, but I am seeing a change in the dialogue and some of these old
Good.
urban legends kind of being put to bed.
Good.
But it takes a lot of repetition. It takes a
Yeah.
lot of everything. And I'm not even remotely saying that these places aren't haunted.
You
I'm
just
just
want the correct
I
facts.
just I just
Yeah.
start feeling sorry for the ghosts after a while because they've
Right?
been named wrong. They're
Yeah.
being labeled the wrong thing and mischaracterized. And
Mhm.
I'm a firm believer that history is a direct link
Yeah.
to the hauntings. And I know it's hard to get people to unhook, what they thought they learned watching TV and stuff, like it's a spiritual warfare or this or that. But
Mhm.
really it's more of you can even it would be a little bit melodramatic to say it's a historical warfare, but it is a
Mhm.
clash between the past and the present, and something from the past is still lingering in the present, trying
Right.
to, I don't know why it's trying to communicate or if it's deliberately trying to communicate, but that energy is there.
Exactly. Yeah, and we had Kevin Oat, am I saying his last name correctly? Kevin Oat on
No,
oh,
Audie.
Audie, thank you. Kevin Audie was on a few months back, maybe longer than that, and I've watched, Haunted Discoveries, and I told him, I said, "You know, I really appreciate the way you guys on the show tell the stories from both, I don't wanna say victim, but, you know, the, witnesses' perspectives, and you interweave the stories of the paranormal in a way that helps tell both stories without the sensationalism, and you bring life back to the people or the spirits who are no longer here. And that is a real talent that takes a lot of, like you mentioned, fact checking, and it takes a lot of, determination because that's something that you really have to want. You have to want to like, merge those 2 things together, and I think people get so wrapped up in the sensationalism, the excitement that, "Oh, I wanna get scared," or, you know, "I wanna catch this on camera," or, "I wanna see this, I wanna be touched, I wanna be scratched, and I wanna scream my head off," and I tell people all the time, that is not what investigation is. You come on an investigation with me, you're gonna be bored out of your mind 99% of the time, because we're just sitting there asking questions in a dark room, and hopefully there's a spirit there listening and we can get an EVP. But we don't know for weeks on end sometimes if we even get anything. And I really do appreciate that about Haunted Discoveries because you guys aren't, like I said, you guys aren't trying to, pro- you're not putting on a production. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no production involved. You're literally telling a story, but I love how you go out and you're really finding these facts. Okay, yes, this story is factual and possibly this haunting is taking place because of this, or this has nothing to do with history. And so we need to dig deeper and figure out what the hell is going on. So tell me, what are some things, not everybody can go out and find a historian. Thank you. Thank you, Anton. Not everybody can go out and find a historian who can work with them on these situations, whether they're researching a haunting or they're just researching maybe their own property. What are some things, where should people start when they want to research and find factual information? Because nowadays with the internet, and it's so funny how you mentioned back in 1996, you were coming across this tour that was giving just spreading false information. We didn't even have I mean, the internet was around, but it was nothing like it is right now. In a day and age, especially with AI right now, how do we filter facts from just crazy stories that are out there? AI images, AI stories that are being just like, conjured up every second of every day. Like, is there a trick to it? Do we have to learn how to weed things out? Like, where do we start? Because even I'm finding it really hard when we have a case come through and we're having to research, a private residence. It can be really hard, especially I live in the South. So, especially here in the South where records were handwritten for a very long time. And some of them don't even exist anymore. We just had a case where there was absolutely n no written record on this property, and we had to go off of word of mouth and who was buried in the cemetery next door. So where do people begin? I know that was long-winded, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Well, I'll tell you where not to begin
Okay,
first. At this point in time, do not use AI for historical research.
right.
I fact check AI. I'll put in something that I
Mhm.
know the answer to already, and it's amazing how often they're wrong. they're
Yeah.
just scraping misinformation off the internet. That's already a problem.
Yeah.
So, and then they will hallucinate facts, and they will put out things that, when you call them on the carpet, they'll, like OpenAI would say, oh yeah, I did invent that, So
Mhm.
no, you don't want to go with that. Where I got started, and your question's very good, by the way.
Thank you.
But when there are newspaper archives, and I
Mhm.
know it can be a little pricey, but newspapers.com is pretty darn good.
Okay.
Um, you have to use different search items and parentheses. And so check for misspellings, check for everything, run the address.
Mhm.
Make sure, try to see if you can find the correct address or had the address changed over time or something.
Mhm.
Some of these really old locations, the address is no good,
Yeah. Yeah, especially if
Sanborn,
they're changing plots to neighboring houses and putting roads in and stuff like that. It can get a little confusing there. We had one house that was literally on in 2 different counties. You're like, "How does that even happen?" But it was.
in Kentucky, I ran into that too.
Mhm.
Sanborn maps are a good, these were old fire maps.
Mm.
Sometimes you can find them online. They're almost all public domain after
Okay.
going back a certain year. And I was able to actually trace some of the buildings. One of the tricks that I was taught by another historian when I was first starting out is if you want to try to find when a building was actually built, and there's no documents and nothing in the newspapers, nothing anywhere, um, tax assessment logs
Yes. Those are great.
is where what you
Yeah.
look for, and that usually is at the county. There's a little
Mhm.
section for it. Sometimes it's a big, huge Harry Potter spell
Yeah.
book, with
Or several
pages
of them.
penciled in.
Yeah.
But what you're looking at is you're looking for when there's a big jump in suddenly tax payments, and that is your red flag that there is a building now standing there.
Mhm.
Now, you may get it for like October of 1925 or something, and you go, oh, a big jump. Well, everything's a little bit delayed, so you need to back it up to maybe the quarter before
I see.
that tax assessment. And that gives you a ballpark figure. Um, Another thing is if you get a name of someone that lived there, try to run it through Ancestry, try to,
Mhm.
figure out, or some of these genealogy sites, try to get as much information or just something to corroborate. It's usually good to have at least two or three sub documents to corroborate something. Um,
Right.
Kentucky, that's where we shot most of the Haunted Discoveries
Mhm.
episodes. So, yeah, there were definitely some areas that were very old, and some of these documents just weren't accessible. And
Mhm.
it is much easier to, of course, research a historic landmark than it is one that isn't, despite it being old,
Yeah.
Los Angeles, it's a newer city. It didn't start like booming until the 1880s, and then it slowed down and then caught back on fire again by
Mhm.
the turn of the 20th century. So it's a lot easier to trace some of these properties out here. But yeah, if you're in like the rural South, um, I will say this though, I was very surprised and very happy to see how well documented some of these locations really were on a local level, on a
Oh,
state
wow.
level.
Yeah.
So they really know things, and
Mhm.
I try to learn as much as possible. I don't feel like there's no such thing as too much information when it comes to
Yeah.
historical research. even like what they ate for salad or what they ate for dinner, the family did on the night of August 17th, 1856. I'll pull all of that aside because you never can tell. If you're running an experiment and you think
Right.
one of these family members may be haunting it, well, it might be good if you want to like make an offering of something, put,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
put a
Yeah.
food item,
You're
put
absolutely
something.
correct.
You
Yeah.
want to know what they were interested in.
Mhm. Yeah, we
And
investigated a house in, Tennessee, and the family was German, and so one of the, tour guides, he speaks fluent German, so we asked him to come in and speak German, and sure enough, we got so many EVPs while he was speaking, some in English and some in German. It was very, very exciting and very cool. Yeah.
that's great, and that's exactly how you're supposed to do it.
Mhm. Mhm. That is very interesting. So, what is one question when you are looking at a new location, say you've never done any research on it before, what's the one question you ask yourself as you get started? What's that one thing you're looking for? Or does it change from location to location?
Well, just being an academic minded person, I want to know exactly when that building was constructed,
Mhm.
what the alteration history was, if there was
Mhm.
alterations. Most of them did, but getting that year is, in my opinion, critical just as a starting point. Now, I also like to know what might have been there before the building,
Mhm.
mind you, if it had been like a battery shop or a livery or something, that could be interesting. If it was, part of a village or on the outside of an indigenous village, that might come in handy too. You
Mhm.
never know. I always kind of assume that if the building is haunted, then chances are it's something that happened within the building, but you
Mhm.
can't rule out that it could be what's underneath it as well.
Right.
So if you can get like details of what the construction materials are made of, there's a lot of limestone in Kentucky. So a
Mhm.
lot of the buildings there are made of limestone. And, there's quite a bit of speculation as to whether or not that is a conduit for paranormal activity.
Mhm.
Um, then, I'd love to know the sequence of families that lived in the place. I think if you miss out on a family name,
Oh
then
yeah.
that's a big gaping hole
Mhm.
that is hard to, it makes it more difficult to investigate. So if you can get, even if it means going back through phone directories or trying to trace, addresses, again, tax records should be able to furnish some
Mhm.
information as to who
Mhm.
owned it. But some of these became rentals or boarding houses and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And you're not going to get the names of it, but what kind of boarding house was it? Who ran the
Mhm.
boarding house? What you're looking for. And I think this is actually the heart of the answer. You're looking for emotional connections to the property.
Yeah.
Who were long-time tenants there?
Mhm. Mhm.
Most of the time, they're not the famous ones. You
Mhm.
know, it'll be someone else.
Mhm.
And the famous one may be later labeled as the ghost, but
Right. Yeah.
who else? Who
Yeah.
else is who stayed there the longest? Did they have kids that lived there? Were they born there? Did children die there?
Yeah.
Um, I'm kind of phrasing these answers as if these are Tennessee properties or Kentucky or Mississippi properties because I researched a lot of them where it was, when you were ill, you were confined to your house. You weren't sent necessarily to a hospital or a
Right.
sanatorium, maybe later, but if you're dealing with Victorian and pre-Victorian people, then yeah, You have to do that. It's always good to, in Kentucky, there were a lot of death certificates after a certain particular time. They're just posted on
Mhm.
Ancestry. And so it was real interesting to,
Ancestry is such a great resource. I think a lot of times, especially for new researchers, whether they're historians or paranormal researchers, it kind of gets overlooked a lot. But there is so much information. I know even for me, just researching my own family, I've found so much amazing information that I had no idea about. I'm like, oh, okay, that's like really cool to know. Ancestry is a phenomenal resource.
yeah. Well, what the good thing is, um, with the well, let me just go on because I have a
Mhm.
I need to give supply stories to this because
Yes, please.
examples. Um, Also, what I did is if there's like a area where there's a cemetery nearby, uh, I like the smaller cemeteries better than the larger ones. But I would literally for haunted discoveries, I would create a spreadsheet
Mhm.
and I would track down
Every
every
single
grave that I
grave.
could
Yep.
and have it available to look at. And this really came in handy when we went to Rugby, Tennessee,
Mhm.
which is this great place. If you haven't been there,
I haven't.
you
I
have to.
haven't.
It
I'm not
is
far from Tennessee, so I need to get up there then.
it's mind-boggling, and the
Okay.
people there are really nice,
Okay.
and they know their history pretty well
Mhm.
too. But there was these reports, supposed ghost photos, but all kinds of people seem to be encountering a little boy about 8, 9 years old, going through some of these buildings. Now, Rugby was a failed utopian British colony that was
Oh,
actually built 100 years after the Revolutionary War.
I see.
And
Okay.
it was done by an author of John Brown's School Days. His name will pop into my head. It's Thomas. Anyway, um, he was a celebrity author at the time, and he was also dabbled in politics in England. And
Mhm.
what he wanted to do was create a society for non firstborn Brits to make a living for themselves.
Okay.
Since the rules back then, the caste system was that the firstborn inherited everything.
Mhm.
So he wanted to create this special place where they can learn how to farm and start their own businesses and stuff. So they bought this tract of land and it was a ripoff. They got ripped off
Mhm.
in Tennessee, and they actually hired some people to get a head start building these Victorian homes. But there weren't enough Brits that came over. They the mountain people of Tennessee were like, who are they?
Yeah.
They're weird. And it became kind of a kind of a country club. I mean, before they could even get a trade going and get things going, they had a polo field and tennis courts,
Oh,
and
wow.
they would all stop to drink tea.
Mhm.
And so it failed overall as as a colony, but it became a little bit of a tourist trap because a lot of people heard about it at the time and they go, oh, let's take a look at this. This feels strange. And a lot of the Brits that did come over, they were just really coming over to look for a rich American woman or a family to marry into. A lot of them didn't really want to put in the time. And
Yeah.
so slowly over the years, they did start marrying into each other, or the Brits would leave and an American family would come in and just start running things. Excuse me. It started becoming a bit of a ghost town, and you
Mm.
had about 20 some odd buildings that are just kind of around houses, whatnot. And even to this day, it's thinly populated. It's mostly a museum that
Okay.
but there is like an 1880s. Um, It's kind of a Airbnb almost that you can rent. It's
Oh, fun.
used to
Okay.
be the used to be a hotel for the
Mhm,
place, or so you can still rent rooms. I stayed there. It's supposed to be haunted. We
mhm,
stayed there for about 3-4 days while filming in Rugby. But that's the history of Rugby. It's so much more to it than that, but that's the foundation. Well, they have a cemetery.
mhm,
It was small enough where I just did a spreadsheet, and I came across a couple of odd deaths that I had questions about. One was a boy
mhm.
that I discovered had in the early like 19 teens or 1920s, he had accidentally died in gunshot
Oh,
accident.
mhm,
And so it was noted. I ran it by Brandon and I ran it by, Mustafa and everything. And so when we were doing an investigation, we were getting a little bit of hits, but not a whole lot.
mhm.
But then Brandon at one point asked, "What's the name of that kid?" And I can only think of one name out of that name, So I said, "Oh, it's such and such." Immediately, the tripwires and all the EMFs started going
Oh,
wild,
yeah.
and it happened over the course of 2-3 days in different buildings. When we would bring up that kid's name,
Mhm,
Hiram, or
mhm,
it would go crazy. And then we started, when we went to the cemetery, we put devices at the marker, and it too would go crazy. And we really, really believe that this was this little boy might be the one that has been seen and photographed and heard
mhm.
throughout that building. And what was even more odd is that, and this really shook up Brandon, is that there was only one place to eat, and it was like several miles from Rugby. And so we would take our meals there. And after having a full day discussion about Hiram and me going back and trying to pull more articles and trying to
Mhm.
get more information, um, Find a Grave, which is also a great resource to
Yes.
look at, had a few pictures on it as well as which you can access through Ancestry.
Mhm.
When we went into that place, they had a whole wall of photos, and one of the photos was Hiram's dad,
Oh, wow.
which we had just seen on Find a Grave.
Wow.
And Brandon's like, "What? This is crazy. This coincidence doesn't make any sense. It's almost like
Mhm.
whatever's there, whatever energy there is, just literally attracting us to see these things, to stumble on them and whatnot."
Yeah, especially
And
since you'd already been there a few times too.
yeah, we never noticed it. Then one day
Yeah.
it was like boom.
Mhm.
And then we found out that the people that ran that restaurant are actually distant relatives of that family.
Wow.
Now, what's cool about it is this was all research. Everything was, weird things were happening, all child related.
Mhm.
And the Dawsons and the tour guides and the paranormal people there were not familiar with the story of Hiram. Yeah,
Really?
because it fell outside of the romantic history of the place,
And that's so
the
sad.
at the colonies and
Yeah.
stuff. And so, that's why you look and you just keep looking.
Mhm.
And, there's no such thing as too much information. You never
Exactly.
know what you stumble on that takes off.
Mhm.
So they were familiar with the grave. They kind of knew a little bit about maybe the gunshot thing. But yeah, what I actually was able to find the newspaper article that talked about it, and he was with a friend of his, and they were out hunting. One of them walked through the shrubs. The shrub, you know, affected the gun, and
Mm.
and the gun went off and shot the boy in the chest.
Oh, no.
there's a lot of dark stories also
Yeah.
with rugby that we also stumbled on, some of them well into the 20th century.
Mm.
Um, so it's got different layers. But this leads to another partial answer to an earlier question.
Mhm.
I want to know when the building's built, but I've always said this: the smoking gun, if you can find it, is when did the ghost stories start and who
Right.
started them? And then
Yeah.
you do have to research the credibility
Mhm.
of the people that started it.
Mhm.
If it's turns out to be a paranormal author that's written like 80 books and has a history of being melodramatic, if he's written a series of books and every time there's a new edition, the ghost count goes up rather than stays level or whatnot. Um, these are red flags that maybe this isn't a terribly reliable source to begin with, and that
Yeah.
maybe you should start over. You can take that. You want to test for it.
Mhm.
Even if you think it's an urban legend, at least make the effort to test for it.
Right. Right.
Um, if it's an urban legend, you're not going to get anything.
Mhm. Mhm.
Usually, that's what I found. It's when you get closest to the actual truth that's when you're most likely to set off devices and get reaction and whatnot.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Heather
so
is
that's
Heather's back with us. Hi, Heather.
Hey, sorry about that. I didn't have sound. I couldn't hear you guys.
Oh
So I'm like,
no. Awesome.
yeah, I'll stick around for a little bit. We're just waiting for the results for my dog, and then
Okay.
they head home.
Okay.
okay.
So
Well, it's good to see you again.
you too. Yeah, I was so excited. Our episode came out Thursday.
Did you like it?
I did. I did. I really did.
That's
Yeah,
what
they
you
did a
want to
great
think
job.
about. Good, good. I'm glad you liked it.
Thank you. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I have no idea what you guys have been talking about. So just
it's okay.
I'm
We were
just
just
picking
talking
his
about
brain. I want to know how to become a historian. So I'm picking his brain.
yeah, it's a
uh,
great brain to pick for that one.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. So Craig, tell us one important skill that needs to be developed if you want to be a historian, but more importantly, to be a good historian and able to find all of these truthful facts.
well, the best thing that you can be, and this will separate, you know, um, I'm not like a degreed historian. I'm kind of self-developed, but I've been kind of mentored by historians, and I have to follow kind of this Roy Rogers creed,
Mhm.
of ethics and whatnot. And you don't twist, never twist history to fit the ghost stories. I have to say that time and time and time
I need
again.
to get that written on a t-shirt, actually.
You use history as a testing ground, a
Yes.
litmus test.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people don't like that because it involves work. It involves preparation, but that was the secret to haunted discoveries
Mhm.
being what it is we prepared.
Yeah.
I mean, we prepared before we even set foot in there. And there was one location, it ended up falling through, and we didn't end up shooting there, but it was in Kentucky, and it was a movie theater that is now like a stage venue, and
Mhm.
everyone, there's this grave in the basement, like underneath the stage, and they go, "Oh, it must be an actress that worked on the stage when it was live theater, and she died,
Um,
and that was her last wish was to be buried there." And I was like, okay, I find that we should be able to find records of that if that's true somewhere. So I started looking, and a whole new story. I found like an 1880 ghost story where actors thought they saw ghosts right outside the window of their dressing room.
Oh, wow.
I went back even further, and I was able to figure out, I know what's haunting that building without even stepping inside. I know what the problem is. What happened was, that was an old cemetery, a pioneer cemetery. And when the volunteer fire department raised money to build a what would be a fire station, they had to make money, so they turned it into a mixed use with a theater.
Right.
But they built on top of some of the graves,
Oh, yeah.
and they kept it a secret
Of course they did. Yeah.
because these were affluent, wealthy people putting in the money to pay for this. And they might have moved some of them, but that grave that's in the basement was never an actress that died in a hotel nearby. That was one of the original graves
Jeez.
that they built this building on. And so it's no surprise that that portion of the building, which is the stage, is where all the paranormal activity is, you know.
Yeah.
But being able to, again, I covered a lot of points just telling that story, trying to find out when the first ghost story appeared. In this particular case, it was like 1891 or something, 1888, 1891. Going back that far, was able to look at the property and determine what was there beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything, a new story completely emerges that kind of blows away and blows up the urban legends and the misdiagnosis of what the haunted activity is. Now, I would have wished we had gone in there and actually investigated it, you know, but we all, especially me,
Yeah.
I knew what was going on before I stepped in there. Another thing that I always kind of recommend, and never gets said enough, but you have to turn off your brain quite a bit when you go in and investigate, and always try to go in with there's a part of me that kind of believes, there's a part of me that wants to believe,
Mm-hmm.
but I have to flip it over to the bigger part of me that says it's not haunted until I
That
see
is
something.
so important. I do the same thing. And Heather, I think you do that too, to a point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. You go in not
Mhm.
expecting to have paranormal activity, but you still know the stories, so you kind of know where to look and try to feel things out and see what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, we all have to be from Missouri when we go there. It's like, you have to show me,
Yeah.
show me,
Yep.
and then I'll believe, you
Yeah.
know. And so I'm pretty, that's when the skeptical hat comes on, and I'm pretty tough on that.
I
But
wouldn't call it skepticism, though. It's not skepticism. There is a word for it. And I don't know, Heather, you probably know where I'm going with this. It's not
well,
Yeah.
skepticism.
I use skepticism in its very purest form.
Yeah.
Skepticism is a gaslighting word that non-believers use all the time.
Yep.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so people will hear skeptic and they think, oh, he's really they're trying to make it sound like they're open-minded, and they're not.
They're not.
When I use the word skeptic, I'm literally meaning I'm open-minded.
Mhm. Yep.
I can be swayed. I
Yeah.
want to be swayed.
Yeah.
So I'm using skeptic in its very purest, honest sense of the word, you know. I'm not, but yeah, you run into people, non-believers all the time, trying to hide behind being skeptics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've always said that a non-believer is just as bad as a true believer, because they're on the flip side. Everything's haunted, regardless of what it is, and you can't sway them to like look at it skeptically to say, what could be naturally causing it.
Right.
Oh yeah, no, there's no difference really, other than it's just a flip-flop on the chain. They're both guilty of the same thing, and at the very heart of it is they have a set of values that the way they see the world, and a mindset, and you're just not going to sway them one way or the other.
Yep.
So both extremes will drive you crazy.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah. And you just have to walk away.
You can tell the older believers, it's like, well, not everybody, maybe your psychic impression. One lady, at the Aztec Hotel, she's going, oh, there were gangsters and there was machine guns sprayed along this wall. And, and I sense it. I know this. And I'm like, there would be, not only would there would be documentation of gangland violence if there was of nature, but you could also probably find and determine where the machine gun bullets, the damage done by them. But I couldn't dissuade her and even cast any doubt in what she's saying. They would get very upset. So there's that. And then the non-believers, you can actually, I always say, if you want to, again, I'm using skeptic as their gaslighting word, but if you want to anger a skeptic, be skeptical of them.
Yeah.
They cannot take it. They can dish it out. They cannot take it.
Yes. Absolutely. Craig, so since you're a photographer and Heather, she has a background in photography as well. I do not. That's one area I'm still learning. It's very hard for me to grasp the concept of lighting and how the shutters work and all that kind of stuff. So that's always been a little bit out of my league, but especially now with AI and we've had we've had this issue with especially with digital photography for quite a while. I have kind of reached the point where I don't even look at photographic evidence anymore because you just you just don't know. Is that something that we're going to find is happening more and more often in the paranormal community with paranormal researchers? Are we going to stop looking at photographic evidence simply because we just can't tell anymore? And especially, Heather, you brought this point up a while back. AI can actually alter the information on a photograph so that you can't even tell if it's been edited or not. Like, where do we go with that? Like, where does this day and age take us? Do we have to just like go off of our own evidence and go off of people having faith in us, or how do we work through this day and age of just this crazy technology being thrown at us from all different directions, and we don't know what is real and what's not anymore?
Well, AI will improve. Right now, it's either pretty good or hilariously awful. And a lot of the stuff is very mediocre and cliched. And so that's what you start looking for, is cliched, for one. Yeah, we even before AI came along, we have the technology where we can basically replicate through special effects anything. It may take a while, but we've already had that technology where we could replicate what we can, and that's why certain TV shows that show videos and then have a bunch of paranormal people talk about it. So most of those videos are not worth watching. I mean, it's like, and to see these guys just, well, they're kind of coerced, I think, in some respects, to say, oh, that was terrific. I can't explain that, But in
it's all
reality,
on the paycheck.
a lot of it can be explained, and probably, and it's like embarrassing, but and so I would never, be on shows like that, because it's, for what I'm telling you, is just almost anything can be somewhat replicated. I think it's the integrity of the information that you have, the character that you have as a person, as a team. And then the methodology that you use, and the more precise and the more either academic or scientific. You can do both because there's a crossover. You have to be
Yes.
somewhat scientific to be academic minded. There's not
Mhm.
that much difference,
Exactly.
You're trying to find other means to explain things. I think it's just very important that if you take video footage and whatnot, that you do not you try to go raw with it as
Hmm.
you can, and just be honest. I think that's just it. Be honest. If you take a photo with a Canon and you have it set to monochrome or whatever, and but you have it also set where you get a raw file, which is the unfiltered, just the straight up file, and you get this shadow, and then you take it back home to analyze it. You put it through Photoshop. You always want to keep your pure photo
Hmm.
completely separate.
Yeah.
Make a copy of it and then use that to kind of
Hmm.
raise the brightness, or try to click, try to see what other details that you might have missed, but have the pure one and don't mess
Yes.
with it
Don't
ever.
let anything happen
Same
to
with
that one.
video
Yeah.
footage. Just never, you have to keep that pure. You can tinker with the other one, the copy, and see what you can find. And maybe there's a suit that it's wearing, but what looked like a shadow turns out to not be a shadow once you brighten it.
Right.
You want to try different things, but you want to be honest when you put it up there for peer review. You
Right.
need to be honest of, the equipment you use, the time of day,
Hmm.
if it's a camera, the aperture, the f-stop setting, what was the speed at which the camera
Right.
was capturing the image, and then just leave it up to them, leave it up to the people that see it to make
Hmm.
the decision
Hmm.
themselves. I
I think
mean,
that's really important. And I think if I may add, I think also what is just as important is being able to now, of course, there are people out there who are just going to be ugly and rude, but there are also people who, I've shared some evidence with Heather and she's been in the past. Well, it could be this. I'm like, yeah, but I was there. you know, but you have to be prepared to put yourself in the other person's shoes. They weren't there, and if they weren't there, how would you view this piece of evidence in their shoes? You have to remain a little bit skeptical. What else happened in that moment that can corroborate what you're saying this could potentially be, right? So
mhm,
you have to be willing and able to do that yourself and not just put something out there and say, "Wait a minute, yeah, this is real." Well, people are, they have the right to hold their own opinion, as do you, and that respect has to go both ways. So you just have to be, you know, have some thick skin with certain people because, like I said, there are going to be very rude people out there who just want to be ugly, and that's their thing, and let them be.
mhm,
But there's also people. Anton says, "Been there." There's also people who, they really want to help you um think a little bit deeper. Did you really look at absolutely everything? You know,
mhm,
and they're not doing it to say that your piece of evidence isn't true, isn't real. They're just doing it because in this field, we have to look for everything. We have to. And, so just be prepared to be able to accept that.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And you
you're
also
gonna run
need,
into jealousy, you're gonna run into everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And you need to trust the people who you work with. Not
Right.
only that, but like the
Yes.
external teams. Like I have a small group of people that they'll send me a photo, and like you, I'll give you my opinion of what I think it looks like, but I'll trust that you were there and this is what happened.
Mhm.
Where then if someone just sends you that you don't even know them, hey, check out this video, you're going to be a little bit more skeptical and a little bit more, I don't want to say critical, yeah, a little bit more critical over it because you don't know them, you don't know their character. But if you know the people that you work with, it's a little bit easier to accept the evidence that they're presenting you.
Right. Right.
Sometimes, and this is what I always, not everyone is going to listen and not everyone's going to do this, but um, sometimes I think it's best to, once you've gone through the first wave of scrutiny and stuff, set it aside. Just set it aside. Don't
Mhm.
rush to social media to publish it. Set it aside. Come back with a different perspective. Maybe a month, 2 months. Maybe keep searching for other answers, other people, or seek out, like, if you have a photograph, find like real photographers that have been doing this longer than you have. Show it to them.
Yeah.
And some of them are going to be non-believers, and so it'll be interesting to see what they have to say as well. And yeah, I mean, you're not going to convince people that already have it figured out how the universe runs, and you're not going to shake that system, because they would literally, probably emotionally and psychologically cave in.
Right. Yeah.
They'd have an identity crisis if you suddenly present them with something that has to make them actually think that what they've embraced all their lives was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk again about the non-believers society here. Is that I wish I was a non-believer. I mean, they've got their arguments down pat. It sounds logical. They sound informed, a little elitist. It's everything you want to be, as a leader in the, thing, and that's what that's like, it sounds so right. Their arguments sound so right. Why is it wrong? Because it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is it wrong? And a lot of it is just, I think, really, it's the flaw is that they're not really willing to admit that science is so far from getting the answers to so many things, and that there's even fights within the scientific community over the standards by which they that they're supposed to test scientific things. And in other words, I've read arguments back and forth over the repetition in a controlled environment.
Yep.
Not all scientists agree with that.
I know.
I mean, they fight over that. And of course, there's no way you can take the paranormal and even remotely be able to prove one thing or another in a scientific setting. You can't even prove that EVPs are errant radio waves or telephone signals in a lab or controlled setting. They've not been able to prove that, but yet you're supposed to believe that that's the argument we should believe, even though it hasn't even been scientifically proved, and using the same criteria that they expect the paranormal to be proved. You can the thing with philosophical debates, and I read a dissertation on this, but it made sense to me, is that there are so many different laws and so many different ideas that people embrace, that if you were to like really argue them out and bring it forward and stuff, after a while you can't even prove that grass is green because it's all our perception of what our eyes are. It's like,
that would be my daughter. My daughter would tell you that.
Yeah.
She has that kind of brain.
You get 10 people out there, they all say it's 10. You get 100 people and say it's 10. And it's like, yeah, but I mean, you ever heard of, mass illusion, and what if you find that one person that only sees purple? Does that make it green still? There are so many ways you can just twist and turn where everyone's confused.
Anton says it's impossible to repeat an instance. That's true. That's true. Yeah. That's what makes our job so hard, Anton, is we can't make a spirit appear. We can't do it.
No.
Well, I hate to cut you guys off, but I'm going to go. I'm getting eaten by mosquitoes out here. I'm going to go back inside with the dog.
No worries. Good
Okay.
luck and keep me posted, okay?
Yep. If I get home before you guys are done, I'll hop back on.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Very
Great
good.
seeing you again, Craig.
Great seeing you, Heather.
Bye.
And then Anton also says, search out others that may have data that they obtained to help validate your data. Yes. Yes. Try
That's
and
good
even if it's
too.
not
Yeah.
your own repeated data, any kind of, in my opinion, any kind of repeated data can help for sure.
Yeah, we're all looking for patterns. I
Yeah.
mean, that's that's along the scientific principles. You want to find repeatable patterns, and I've actually got my own ideas that I play with, but I always have to kind of say that everything I say may not be correct. It's
Yeah.
just because I can't prove that ghosts exist. But
Mhm.
some things that I've noticed more common than not is what I spoke about earlier at the beginning, is that there seems to definitely be a historical connection, a history connection to hauntings.
For sure.
It's a
Yeah.
past energy, past personality,
Mhm.
something from the past that manifests itself periodically in
Mhm.
the present.
Mhm.
The other thing that I noticed, and I think this is kind of fascinating, is that I used to always be like, you got to stay all night in a haunted place, and you got to 24/7, investigate, and you're not, no time. What I have actually found, and this is with monitoring, doing an investigation, then setting up monitors and audio and everything,
Mhm.
and then leaving the building, or investigating for the show. This definitely happened on Haunted Discoveries almost every time, is that the paranormal activity starts, it's like it's like a wave. It's like a
Mhm.
time window of where it goes kind of
Yeah.
crazy.
Mhm.
And then it gets quiet
Mhm.
and nothing,
Yeah.
you know? So I was always wondering, it's like, oh, we're running a little late on the investigation. Is it enough time? And I used to really worry about that. How can you really,
Yeah.
some of these teams have been investigating for years. Now we're just coming in and we're supposed to, come back with all of this stuff. But
Yeah.
what happens is you get talking about the history, you're spending lots of hours on the property,
Yeah.
but then you go in and if you catch that burst, you'll catch a lot of stuff, and then it gets quiet by the time,
Do you
it's
find that I was kind of running my own experiment a while back, and we were at a location in Savannah, and I just did this again and at our last investigation at the Harriman Hospital in Tennessee. And I was telling a teammate at both locations, I said, when people experience phenomena, they're not walking into work or walking into their house saying, okay, what's going to happen?
Mhm.
They're going throughout their regular day. They're doing their job. They're just going throughout their day. So in Savannah, all of these things happened leading up to me leaving to do this 4-hour drive to Savannah for this investigation, and I almost didn't make it. We had a pipe burst in our yard. I mean, it was like the universe was trying to work against me somehow. I made it to Savannah. And so while we're doing this investigation, we're doing an ITC session and I'm asking questions, but I'm also, my brain is back here at home. Like, what's going on? How much is this
Mhm.
water bill going to be? Like, just all of this stuff. And in that moment, I was touched on the back. And we didn't know until a couple weeks later that it was actually caught on camera. You can actually see my shirt lift. And so it was very exciting to see that. Like it did happen because I felt it. Um, but again, it's another piece of evidence that can corroborate what I actually experienced. And so that was very exciting to have that. We had no idea that that one camera was positioned in a way that would catch the room across the hallway. It was very
Mhm.
exciting. So, anyways, like when we were in Harriman, I had that thought again. I said, what if we just like have a regular conversation? Like we're not trying to ask EVP questions. Let's just relax and, talk like we are just friends. We're having a conversation and see what happens. And sure enough, you start hearing whispers. You start hearing, was that a door opening or closing? So I think we get so wrapped up in, we're at this location and we have to get some evidence, so we have to do this and this, and we have to go down this list, and we can't miss a beat. We have to check all the boxes. But I think if you just go in kind of like you alluded to, you're more relaxed now. Just go in and be relaxed and kind of go in with this, at least I do. I go in with this mentality of, look, if something's here, chances are we have all of this equipment. We're going to pick it up somehow on one of our cameras, on, because we wear body cams, on a body cam. Somehow we're going to capture some kind of evidence. And if we don't, perhaps actually nothing's here. 9 times out of 10, we end up capturing something. But I think going into a location and not having such a like being in a mindset of like, I have to do all these things because I have to capture these pieces of evidence. And some teams are like, we have to capture everything, and that's nearly impossible. I think just going in more relaxed and kind of with the mentality of, hey, I'm here, and we're here, we have all of this stuff, you're welcome to touch it, use it, make it go off. um you know
Mhm.
but just going in more relaxed and not being so caught up in wanting to capture that evidence, because that's so much pressure. It's a lot of pressure, and you don't always get the evidence that you're hoping for. And any evidence is exciting evidence. I've come to learn that. I still get giddy when I hear an EVP. Um,
That's still my favorite. I prefer it
yeah.
even over the visuals, to be honest with
Do you
you. But,
really? Yeah.
yeah.
See, I
Yeah,
haven't been lucky enough to capture a whole lot of visuals yet, but I still get giddy when I hear an EVP because I know there was nobody in that room. I know where all of my team members were at that moment. So it's just, there's that excitement there.
well, I have to address one of the things you said
Yeah.
because I was kind of quietly laughing. The Queen Mary is a perfect example
Mm.
of this, almost like this unspoken peer pressure. If you're going to go and investigate and you don't catch anything, you suck as a paranormal investigator,
I've
right?
never been to the Queen
There's
Mary.
that kind of pressure to, you got to come up with something. So as a result, you have a lot of bad, non-existent paranormal evidence being passed
Mhm.
off as paranormal evidence. And
Oh,
so I would say to you or anyone out there is that it's perfectly okay not to catch anything.
yeah.
Even at places like the Queen Mary, at least do your due diligence and maybe you won't catch it, but maybe you'll have a good time anyway.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
and what if instead, I know you got a YouTube channel, so you've got to fill it out. It's got to be 30 minutes long, it's got to be an hour long. And all I got was this one thing. How do I do this? And I'm not going to tell you how or not to do that, but just go with the one thing. Don't
Yeah.
go with the other stuff.
Yeah.
Don't bring out don't bring out the stuff you see on paranormal shows, that which is what they're doing, is they're
Mhm.
just adding, like, they know that this stuff produces false positives. They're just going to use it anyway
Yeah.
because it fills out a show.
Yeah.
And it also saves massive amount of time actually hiring someone to look at surveillance camera footage or listen to audio left overnight. So just use, you
People
ought to
don't
spend
realize
more
how
fuel.
many
You oughta,
hours go into reviewing evidence. It is
yeah.
massive, massive.
Oh yeah, no, I've you kind if you have an audio equipment for 12 hours, it's going to
Mhm.
take more than 12 hours to go through it. It's going to take more
At
like
least
20,
triple that time.
24.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, oh, when you listen, by the time you're there and then you listen to the monitoring, you have investigated that place at least 3 times over the amount of
Mhm.
time that you actually were there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's and then if you do find things, or even if it's like a squeak, or then you isolate it and then you listen to other. This is another thing that I stress as a paranormal investigator and not so much as a historian. Mic everything.
Mhm.
I mean, there's no such thing as not enough information. There's also no such thing as having too many audio
Yeah.
recorders,
Yeah, we wear
because
body cams
you can
on us.
actually
Mhm.
find out where the sound is emanating from within the room or even
Mhm.
outside the room. One of my favorite stories is like the Queen Mary first class swimming pool. I've seen YouTube videos of this blood curdling scream that it sounds like a woman going,
Oh, wow.
and they're going, oh yeah, and it sounds creepy. It sounds like, what is this going on? Well, guess what? I got that same darn sound too, but
Oh.
I had mics everywhere, including at every door,
Mhm.
and it was two employees laughing at the end of a hallway. And by the time that
Wow.
sound reaches the echo chamber,
Yep.
it sounds like a woman screaming, but it
Mhm.
wasn't. It was just two employees goofing around and
Yeah.
laughing.
Yeah.
But had I not had that audio, I would have been convinced I caught a scream. So I can't stress enough how important it is to mic everything. Even with haunted discoveries, it's kind of funny. I would read some of the remarks and going, Craig, why don't you have an audio recorder in your hand? It's like, what are you guys doing? And they don't realize that I've got a lavalier, I've got a boom mic, and then we have like 4 or 5 cameras around with all mic for audio.
Right.
So it's like you're aware if there's a noise that's made there. For show, I could have a little zoom. But if there's something going on there, we're gonna catch it
Yeah.
audio. And what's
Yeah.
weird is like there were times when I'd have like a little camera in my hand with a mic, and it's always weird. Sometimes the audio signal will come only on one microphone, but not
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, it
And
happens to us all the time. We'll capture something on one piece of audio and not on anything else that was around. Yeah. Anton says, "What if the system analyzes the video?" I don't trust that. I analyze it with my own eyes. My own eyes and my own ears. I don't use anything that will analyze, audio or
well,
video.
if you know how it works, but yeah, there's for instance, Adobe Audition is pretty good at looking at spectral audio
If
waves.
you're visually, yeah, looking for a spike, looking for something, if you know what to look for, that's different. But actually analyze, like having a system analyze it for me, no. Mm-mm.
No, I wouldn't. We did an experiment where we on Haunted Discoveries. It was one of the later episodes that hasn't been released yet, but we actually did an experiment where we were trying to use AI just to see how that would work,
Hmm.
in a paranormal. It was a disaster. It was
Oh, I bet.
actually a comedy of errors,
Oh, jeez.
so and we all walked away. We after laughing, we are all like going, no, let's get back to like real ghost
Yeah,
hunting here,
yeah, that's
and
awesome.
good luck trying to get an AI voice to shut up long enough to actually look for a ghost, much less analyze anything. So yeah, I wouldn't use AI right now for
Mm-mm.
really
No.
anything. I would like to see the statistics. Is AI screwing things up far more
So
than
I
it's
know,
actually helping people?
yeah, I know in the paranormal field, I know there are some people working on some programs where AI will analyze audio and video to look for it. It won't necessarily say nothing's there or something is there, but it will. It's more along the lines of you want to look at this timestamp. You want to look at this part.
Mhm.
Um, I haven't looked into it too much, and this is just stuff that I've heard through the grapevine. But like you said, right now, much rather just do it myself, because
Well,
if I miss something, I can always go back and look at it, and we go back and reanalyze things all the time. Like if we get another case and we're like, oh yeah, remember this one case, and I've done that. I've gone back and looked at our evidence video, and I'm like, oh man, I missed that. There's like something right before that other EVP, and I totally missed it. I didn't hear it the first time around. That's going to happen because we're human, and that's supposed to happen. um but I just don't trust AI with stuff like that right now. It's just it's not there, and honestly, I don't know if it will really ever be there in the near future. um yeah,
yeah, I
and that's
read
just
something
me.
where, they were using AI to help like come up with business plans and tighten up corporate stuff. And a lot of them have had to drop it because the advice that he gave in the programs just weren't working. It
Yeah,
wasn't improving anything.
yeah. As some
Um,
I was talking to a friend, and they said it's the only thing it's really good for is to be your personal assistant. Yeah.
suppose so.
Like, make my
Your personal
calendar
yes
and
man or
yeah.
yes person, because everything you do is great.
Yeah.
You know, um, yeah, they're like, yeah, it's
The Wendigo the Wendigo Power Scholar. I think that's what that's supposed to say. Sorry, but it's hard to prove the unexplainable because it's good at hiding properly, or it leaves quickly, or doesn't show itself. Yeah.
no argument there.
Yeah,
I'm not
exactly.
actually how I got started with the book Haunted by History and
Mhm.
everything. I've had I've had historical society. I had one guy read it. He was like president of the Monrovia Historical Society. He goes, "I read your book from cover to cover. I can't tell whether you believe in ghosts or not." You know, and I said, "Well, that's probably a really good compliment right there." You know, and I'm not out to prove ghosts exist.
Mhm.
What I am trying to do, and it's kind of a play on words, but it actually makes sense, is I'm hearing about ghostly happenings in hotels and stuff.
Mhm.
So I run tests to see if there's any merit to the stories. And so then I report, well, this is what happened to me, As do I think it's haunted? Yeah, I would attribute haunted if it does meet the merits of the paranormal claims, but it's
Mm.
not proof that
Yeah.
ghosts exist.
Yeah.
For instance, if there's a place that has a room where a piano plays by itself late at night, that's one of the paranormal claims. Well, so you mic the piano, or you do tests, and you just always have it surveilled, maybe not with cameras, but certainly with audio. And let's say it does play at one briefly for one particular night that you're there. Does that mean that's ghost? No, it could be all kinds of things, even like you know, a rodent infestation. I don't know. You have to look at all the other things that what it
Listen, we've been
possibly
on
could
an
be.
investigation where the haunting was a rodent infestation. So, yes, it
But
it
there
happens.
is merit to the claim.
Yeah.
Like at the Hotel del Coronado, we were staying at the Kate Morgan room. One of the claims is that at 5 in the morning, sometimes the phone would ring and pick it up, and there's nothing on the other line.
Mhm.
That happened to us, to the person that was staying there. She said
Oh,
it
wow.
sounded like it was a laundromat going on in the background, but it was
Oh.
it was very staticky. Okay, there's merit to the story, but does that mean it's paranormal? No, not necessarily. That is a building that was built in 1888. It's on a peninsula, which means it's surrounded by water.
Mhm.
Um, and the wiring has been, the hallways have been reconfigured, renovation, the wiring's been replaced, some not replaced. It's an old building. It could be an old short in the wiring. So
Mhm.
I'm not going to call that a ghost when it happened, but it is interesting and
Yeah.
it is somewhat repetitive.
Mhm.
And I can't dismiss it
Right.
as not being paranormal either. So
Right.
what I'm looking for is, I'm looking for corroboration. I'm looking to see, is there merit behind the stories? And it's as someone had said earlier in the evening, in this interview, it's always good to try to find like-minded people to get what happened to them, because
Yep.
there are some things that have happened to me that I willingly dismissed as not paranormal. I was being
This
skeptical.
it was
I
this
run
comment here.
into
Yeah.
someone and they tell me what happened to them, and it's exactly what happened to me. And I went, oh my God, it's not my overactive imagination.
Yeah.
This has happened to someone else
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Completely have to go back to the drawing board, add it back in,
Mhm.
and and look into it again. So yeah, it's very critical to be able to do that.
Mhm. Mhm. What is what would people be most surprised about when you explain to them how much research and work goes in to what you do prior to showing up to a location?
Oh well, I always tell people I'm actually 35 years old. It's the ghost hunting that's aged me. It's the research, uh, late nights, stress, all that kind of stuff. But no, seriously, there's a lot of work that goes into it. You know, I know this is a kind of a kooky thing I'm about to say, but when I spent 6, 7
This is a
years
paranormal show. It's
for the for the
Cookie's
book
great. Yeah.
for the book,
Oh, for the book.
and I always knew I was finished researching when I start getting almost like this vertigo where I start feeling like I can literally hear, sense, smell the period of time of what I'm currently writing about.
Interesting.
And it's like I think I have a full understanding
Mhm.
of the energy, because what I would do is I would, when I did the book, I would only do light research. I'd go Wikipedia. I try
Mhm.
to look at see what you do. I was just trying to see what's online. I would try to do a little bit of actual um, historical research, because I'm looking for story ideas of which I could stage my photos. So then I
Right.
would hire models. I would buy um, 1920s dresses, 19 teens dresses, rent, get permission, always have to get permission, rent the haunted spaces, and then day and night at weird hours during the slow period, preferably out of season, we would go and recreate some of these stories I would come across, or even recreate the hauntings in the space. Okay.
Wow.
And then we would mic it. We'd mic it while we were doing it, but we would mic it heavily, and then we'd all leave and go to another part of the building.
Mhm.
A lot of the EVPs and the weird sounds we would get would actually be right after we packed up and left. But every
Yeah.
now and then, something weird would happen during, like a door would open and close, or a door would slam
Mhm.
while we're doing the photo shoot,
Mhm.
and no one's on the other side. Now, then what I would do, and I would be there for 3, 4 days. And I
Mhm.
always say that if you do that, you're going to have an idea whether this place is haunted or not by the
Oh,
time
yeah,
you leave,
for sure.
especially if you're spending the night there as well, taking your meals there. And,
Mhm.
and it's also fun to see how everyone else, what their take is and what they think is going on. Now, I wouldn't let everyone ghost hunt, mind you. I
Mhm.
would only pick a few select and I would train them.
Mhm.
The others I don't want ghost hunting. I mean, they can do whatever they want in their off time, just so long as they stay away from the actual investigation.
Right.
They could do their tarot cards. They could do whatever, whatever they want to do. But we're not going to incorporate any of that into this investigation whatsoever. It's going to be very straightforward.
Mhm.
Then And I guess my point of saying that is that you get a sense of the energy there, just the feel of the place. You really get a feel for the building after being there for 4 or 5 days, working around the clock. So when I then I listen to the audio and I take notes and stuff, and then I start the research, the heavy, deep dive research. And when I feel like mentally and historically I've tapped into that energy that I experienced at that building when I was there for 3, 4 days, that's when I know I'm done. It's almost like you just have to, you know, I'm in it to time travel.
Oh, I love
So
that. Yeah.
I want to connect with the past.
Mhm.
Raymond and I talk about all that all the time.
Mhm.
He's kind of the same mindset. We want to
Mhm.
connect with the past so bad. This is the closest we can get right now to time traveling, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
And
Yeah.
so if I can get that sense of I'm back in this time
Mhm.
and I know what's going on here, I know what things were going on back then. Um, then just historically mapped out, you've answered a lot of questions, you filled in a lot of gaps research wise and stuff. A whole new story pops up that's usually not what you find on websites because they're not
Right.
putting in the time and the passion and the stuff for that. And so I look for forgotten stories.
Mhm.
That's really cool. And people love that. Even if you end up just giving tours of the location, it's the quality of the forgotten stories that you bring in that adds a whole new personality. But a lot of times the ghost stories actually change.
Yeah. Yeah.
For instance, I researched the Hollywood Roosevelt.
Mhm.
All they talk about is the ghost of Montgomery Clift, the ghost of
Mhm.
Marilyn Monroe. Um, Marilyn Monroe didn't even live there. That they're charging $5,000 a night for a bungalow. Oh well, what about the Marilyn Monroe mirror that she gave to the hotel? Well, I found the inventory list of the bungalow mirrors when they opened and were completed in 1950. They match exactly what that was. It's not a Marilyn Monroe mirror. It's one of the surviving 340 bungalow mirrors that was originally installed in the bungalows. Okay, people go there, influencers, everybody, they're all going Marilyn Monroe,
Mhm.
the ghost of Marilyn Monroe. They don't put any logical thought as to why would Marilyn Monroe live in a tourist hotel right off of Hollywood Boulevard? And how come we don't have a lot of photos of her being
Right.
like stalked
But
by paparazzi?
and
Oh, well, there's a photo of her in a hotel room over the bed in the suite. I said, yeah, that was taken at the Bel Air Hotel where she was.
and I always find
And
it hilarious how especially this is especially true with celebrities who have passed. They're haunting multiple locations.
oh yeah, Valentino out here. Yeah.
I mean, come on guys. How does that make
Yeah.
sense? You know?
Oh yeah. No, Valentino haunts the Hollywood Knickerbocker, even though it wasn't completed until 3 years after his death in New York City. Um, but no, the thing that people don't get about the Roosevelt is that there are over 30, 35 documented deaths there,
Mm,
including murders,
yeah.
suicides. Nobody talks about that, but
Yeah.
that's what.
Hotels are I tell people, because people are always when they find out what I do, they immediately wanna talk about cemeteries.
Mhm.
And I tell people cemeteries are not as haunted as people would like them to be. I say, if you wanna experience something, spend a night at a hotel, any hotel. Think about the amount of people that come and go daily, the types of people that come and go daily.
Everything under the
That
sun was done there.
yeah, I mean, those places are haunted.
Mhm.
And it's really interesting to see people who especially people who have never, like, really dived into the paranormal, they kinda sit back and they think about that for a minute, and it's like, yeah, because 'cause you're, like, making a light bulb go off in their head. And
Mhm.
but yeah, no, I hotels have amazing stories attached to them. All hotels do. Um, but
Yeah, there's a story of a little girl that's been seen, like, calling out for her mom or dad or something in the
mm,
lobby, and, that has been reported off and on. It's mostly urban legend at the Roosevelt.
mhm.
Um, I did find something that almost fits that. It wasn't
Oh,
a death of a child there, but what a lot of people don't realize is that that was mostly a family-run business. It was opened by the studios as a means of bringing, Hollywood was this bustling thing. There were already tours taking people to the front doors of movie stars, and it's like, come on,
yeah.
let's go to a place where we go to the tourists for a few hours, make them happy, then we go back to the privacy of our homes. So that's kind of why they built the Hollywood Roosevelt, is so that they could celebrate, have dinners, celebrate movie premieres at the Chinese theater,
Mhm.
do publicity stunts, gather the press, gather this, chance to interact with the fans. That's what it was about. Well, it went under with the Great Depression. Around the early 30s, there was a family that bought the hotel and they ran it
Mhm.
up until the 1960s.
Oh, wow.
And so nobody talks about them. Nobody talks
Mhm.
about this family. Now they say that the penthouse is haunted. They said that that was the trysting place of Clark Gable and Carol Lombard. And there used to be seances where, the psychic would go, yes, Carol Lombard definitely haunts that penthouse. Well, they never they never did that. Again, why would you, if you're keeping having an affair, why would you go to a tourist trap to hide it? It's like, that's just so dumb.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
dumb on its face. But the hotel charges $7,000 a night, and people that buy that think that
Mhm.
that's what they're getting.
Mhm.
The family members ended up living there. One of them dies of cancer in that
Oh,
penthouse, and
okay.
she was the programs director. She was the sister of the owner.
Mm,
She's probably the ghost there, not Carol Lombard.
right.
But this little girl ghost, I came across the owner had lost a child that fit that age
Mm.
to a rare disease.
Yeah.
And now she didn't die in the hotel, but if this child's running around calling for mommy and daddy when mommy and daddy were working at this hotel quite often, and she probably grew up playing around in that hotel, that could be that would be my suspect of, probably who's haunting it. And it would be something,
Right.
if I ever had the chance to like really investigate, that's exactly where I would go.
And that just goes to show how important it is to get history right,
Hmm.
because people are going on about Carol Lombard and all these celebrities, and the whole time there's a possibility that there's a little girl whose story has just been lost, you know?
Hmm.
And I always say when I go into an investigation, one of the things I say to the spirits is, you were alive once, you had a life, and you're still here for a reason. Do you want to tell your story? I think that's really important. You have to give you have to have respect, and I
Hmm.
think and that's one of the I'm going to go back to the beginning of the show. It's one of the reasons why I love haunted discovery so much, is because you guys have so much respect for spirits, and you want, like I said earlier, you want to tell both sides of the story, and I think that is so important. And Anton says, does Craig know of anyone that works on the history of the Menger? Am I saying that correctly?
Menger
Menger
Hotel.
Hotel. My
It's
wife
in
and I
Texas,
both
right?
seen a apparition there, and I would like to talk to a historian.
Well, I don't. I'm sorry. I would love to. That's on my bucket list. I'd love to get around to adding that too. I'm from Texas originally, so I've heard of a lot of hotels in Texas that I would love to I would love to investigate and get to know the history, and that would be one. I'd love to, if you ever want to reach out to me, anyone listening with questions and stuff, I can, you know, I'll try to I'll try to answer them, but keep the conversation going. Yeah, I would, I'd like to know the history too. You might be able to find a city historian that might know something, but don't be surprised. Do not be surprised if there isn't a historian at all,
Yeah.
which
And
opens the
don't
door for you to be a historian.
right. And also don't be surprised if you come across stories and many of them have been corroborated, and then you come across somebody who was supposed to be an expert and they don't want to go there. I've run into, especially here in the South, I run into that. There's still this kind of stigma where people just they don't want to talk about certain things. So don't be surprised with that either.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, fortunately, most of the historians that I've met, there's a few that just go, we just stick to facts and we don't want to.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I actually believe that the hauntings are part of the social fabric of the history. They become part of the history when people write about it, um, shoot photos there, put it in film packages. I think it's really a mistake to ignore it. And fortunately, a lot of the historians I've met, they've had paranormal experiences, so they're upfront about it. That either they believe or they're not disbelievers. They just kind of accept it for what it is and just go along with it.
Mhm. And then Anton says, "Little girl that was born and died young at the Mia Molly's in Fort Worth." Interesting. I
Mhm.
wonder if Heather has heard, because Heather lives in Texas now, so I'm wondering if she's heard of that story.
I'm guessing that's why I said Minger and why I'm from Texas. That's
Mm.
what I thought the Minger was in San Antonio. Am I right? Um, Fort Worth, the Stockyards. There's a hotel that supposed to be haunted there. I've always loved the Stockyards. It's supposed to be where the West began in Texas.
Oh,
The Stockyards and everything west of Fort Worth was the West.
oh, I see. Interesting. So let's touch on your book a little bit more because we only have about 20 more minutes. Haunted by History. I think that is such an interesting title. And I'm wondering if you could tell us what that means to you and why you chose that title for your book without
Actually,
giving
I didn't
anything
choose
away.
it for me. It was kind of chosen for me.
Oh, was
It
it?
was actually a model that he had modeled for me on a couple of shoots, and we had just gotten together for dinner. And I had been working on this book, and I couldn't even tell you what I thought. Part of me wanted to market myself as the haunted historian at that time,
Mhm.
but this was years ago before was a haunted historian on Instagram. But I got talked out of it because it's like, no, you call yourself a haunted historian, people are going to think you're haunted. And so it's like, no, you want to come across as um, an intellectual, not a sensationalist. And
Mhm.
so but when I was telling the concept and what I've been going through and some of the weird things that I found historically, he goes, well, it's like what you're trying to write is like these places are haunted by history. And then the light bulb went off in my head, and I went, I think he just gave me the title for the book,
That's awesome.
and so I gave him credit in the introduction for that, and I went with it.
Mhm.
Editors wanted to add a really super long, separating the facts and myths of 8 historic haunted hotels in Southern California. And it's like, oh boy, I can't even remember that part of the title half the darn time. But it ended up, you know, I didn't dare take it to a publisher because I'd spent so much money on it that I was like, there's no way I'm going to hand this off to Schuster or some,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
because I'll only get like 8%
If
of
you're lucky.
if
Yeah.
I'm lucky. Yeah, it's like there's no way.
Yeah.
But what I did is I picked
And that's
a
not
few
to
days.
say anything bad about publishers. They have to make a
No,
living too. They have to make
well,
money so they can give advances and, and
I had to cover the expenses for I of the
it's a
photo
lot
shoot
being an indie author. Yeah.
and even pulling all the resources. So with this one, no, I wanted to get it out there. I didn't want anyone telling me, well, maybe you should cut this part out. I
Right.
did hire editors that did that for me,
Hmm.
and proofreaders and stuff. And I wanted it to be same quality as a publisher. I
Hmm.
just was going to do it
Yourself. Yeah.
on my own dime. And so I ended up hiring people that used to work for big publishers and they were
Hmm.
working freelance. And
Yeah.
so it was a family effort. It wasn't just me doing it alone. And so when it came out, it actually, I only put it in one contest. Again, I was kind of dopey, naive, and maybe a little skeptical that about what the reception would be. But it went in one contest and it won, and it won an award. And then I just put it through like Publisher Weekly. They have a separate division for self-published. So I
Hmm.
just put it in there, and then suddenly I get notification that it got kicked up over to Publishers Weekly. And then I got notification that it got the star pick of
Wow.
their issue. So which
That's
is
awesome.
beats out like all of the publishers stuff.
Hmm.
And for a paranormal book to get a star rating on a
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah,
was like
that's pretty cool.
incredible.
Hmm.
And so those are the only two things I've ever entered it in, but the rest of it was just word of mouth. I had to market. I couldn't do volume two. Enough people bought the book where they wanted tours. So at first I was like, no, I don't want to do tours. I'm an author, darn it. But then I started doing tours and I really loved it. And
Oh.
I really loved the human interaction and
Hmm.
getting to make friends and stuff. And so I'm very grateful that I got talked into it and that I allowed myself to say yes.
Hmm.
And then ultimately, I think Brandon and Mustafa, they wanted to kick the research up a notch than what they had
Hmm.
already. So they brought me on for starting season 4. And um, and we immediately, wasn't long into the season where they said we've already had more paranormal activity in season 4 than we did seasons 1 to 3 combined.
Oh, wow.
And I like to take some credit for it in that I brought the research to a whole nother level too.
Right. Yeah.
And so we were firing off things because the research was a lot deeper.
Hmm.
But the show was always had good research, and
Always. Yeah.
um, it wouldn't have made it to season 4 if it didn't already have that style and that level of caring and passion and research already going.
Exactly.
It's just that I would take it. I'm almost OCD. It's like once you get me on a project, I will keep looking and looking and looking until I'm absolutely exhausted and I can't do it anymore.
I
And
find myself
so,
watching the shows and I'm like, okay, what's he going to find next? What's it going to be?
oh yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
originally I was brought on to do just family spirits,
Hmm.
um, and so it wasn't. It was like halfway through family spirits, so they said we want to bring you on uh, haunted discoveries as well. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm from Missouri. Well, I'll believe it when I see it.
Hmm.
Not really from Missouri, but sometimes I take that same mentality into everything I do. Uh, so it happened, and it was great. And what you see is what you get with haunted discoveries, and that's why I love working on that.
Yeah.
I do have to say this at this point. We just came back from shooting a documentary
Hmm.
in Northern California called Ghosts of the Gold Rush.
I am
And
so excited. I saw that post from Haunted Discoveries on
yeah,
social media, and I'm from Northern California. So I know some of the history up there. I am so excited, and I cannot wait for that to come out.
so yeah, we're kind of, ever since Haunted Discoveries Family Spirits won a Telly Award.
Mhm.
Um, so that's also a rarity for a paranormal show to win anything, except Scorn. It can win ratings, but it also gets its share of Scorn. So we got an award for
Yeah,
excellence, and
that's
so
awesome.
um, it's a departure. The Ghost of the Gold Rush isn't going to be like Haunted Discoveries in that we're not at ghost hunting.
Mhm.
We are like literally just letting people tell their story. And of
I
course,
love that.
I do the background research,
Mhm.
but you're not going to see me being Mr. Know-it-all on camera or anything. In fact, one of the ladies that was in charge of like Auburn, she goes, "Oh, it was such a great." She wrote to all of us saying how great it was to work with us, and she said, "Oh, and Craig, the guy who's really quiet and and sits in the corner until he just starts spurting this geyser of information." And it's like I started laughing because it's like,
Aw.
yeah, that's kind of how I am. It's like I'm quiet most of the time, but then when I get started,
Mhm.
I can be quite loquacious.
Oh, I can't like I said, I can't wait to see it. I know it's gonna be fantastic. I already love the way you guys tell stories, so I know that this is gonna be done very, very well.
This was an idea that Brandon had even before he joined Ghost Hunters, and Mustafa heard about it. He was all gung ho for it, and so I guess they were just waiting for a window
Mhm,
of opportunity to actually do it.
mhm.
And so they asked me to come on board, and as the researcher. And so I was like, sure. We're like a band of brothers, really, at this point. So, um, I we all took turns working behind the scenes on it, and I will tell you that the people we met
Mhm.
were so good. And
Awesome.
I don't know how we could have done it without the cooperation of the cities,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
some of the government workers, the people that worked in the courthouse of this one location, the historians there were pretty good too.
Yeah. People are really
And
proud of the history up there. Um, it's not one of those places like being here in the South. When we first got here, me and my husband were both like, "Man, like, it's really hard to get people to kind of open up about things out here." Whereas, because 'cause we're both from California, it's like everybody likes to talk about all the things, everything they know. So yeah, like I really do miss that about being stuck out west, where it's a little bit easier to get information, whereas here I have to dig so deep to
yeah,
get information on locations.
well, I've seen cuts. It's being edited as every day, and I've
Yeah,
seen different edits of how Ghost of the Gold Rush is coming out, and it's really good. I like it. It's
yeah.
not, again, it keeps in the same kind of vein of everything we've done, is that we're not really going, it's not sensational
Mhm.
wise. It's not going to be a shock doc, in other words,
Right. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
going to be, it's the history, but it's also the folk history that has
Mhm,
kind of shaped everyone's perception that
mhm.
live in these places about their own hometown,
Yeah, yeah.
where they work, and the people that were there before them, and the reputation that continues to linger long after the original players have
Yeah.
played their last hand and are buried God knows where, maybe in a parking lot,
Right?
maybe you know in a pioneer cemetery,
Yeah.
or a lot of these people and places are lost to history. So it's
Mhm.
kind of, it's cool. And
Yeah.
so we're covering a number of locations, including a hotel.
Mhm.
And it was great. Again, it gives me a chance to be a time traveler temporarily.
Yeah. And what you do is you give everybody a chance because of how well you do your job and how well everybody on the show does their job. You give all of us that chance to be time travelers. And because I've spoken with you now and I've also interviewed Brian, is that his name? Brian Autty. Sorry, I'm
Oh,
very bad.
Kevin Audie.
Kevin,
Yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry, guys. I'm very, very bad with names. Um, and I know how you guys and I've watched the show and I understand now, your kind of philosophy on, behind the scenes and how everything is supposed to be laid out and produced. I know that this project is going to shine a light on stories that have been lost to history. I know that was the point, and I know you guys are gonna do it all justice. So,
Oh
y
yeah. Even when we're not shooting, like even today and tomorrow will be the same. Yesterday was the same. I'm working on a number of projects that are completely forgotten stories, but they deserve to be told. They're
yes.
kind of, in a way, they kind of tie into some of the stuff that's going on today. So
Mhm.
it's a little bit of relevance.
Yeah.
Um, the quest for fame, what people will do
Yeah.
for attention, and
Yeah.
using what media that they had back then to try to generate attention and love and all this other
Right.
stuff, and how how dangerous it always has been when
Mhm.
you want to ride the dragon of fame,
Yeah.
and that dragon doesn't want you on its back half the darn time, and will
Right.
do whatever it can to, you know, knock you off.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, someone else is trying to climb onto the back and knock you off too. And it's just this never-ending cycle. And
Mhm.
I find fame and the pursuit of fame always to be terrifying and fascinating at the same time. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I found a handful of stories where people were willing to lie, cheat, everything
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
moment of fame.
Mhm. So if you guys want to stay connected and keep track on the production and the release of the next, it's Haunted
Ghost of the Gold
Discoveries,
Rush. It's going to be called Ghosts of the Gold Rush. It
Ghost of the
might.
Gold Rush. Okay.
It's
Yeah.
going to be. It's the makers of Haunted Discovery. I mean, Discoveries.
Haunted
We can
Discoveries
we
on
can
Facebook is a
certainly
great
slap
page
that
to
title
follow.
on,
Yeah.
but I don't know that we made that decision yet. So
Okay.
it's called Ghosts of the Gold Rush.
I think that's what I saw on Facebook the other day. So you guys go and find their Facebook page, Haunted Discoveries, and follow,
Yeah.
give them a follow because they do share what is upcoming. So
Yeah,
yeah.
you can find it on Haunted Discoveries TV,
Mhm.
uh, or Black Hollow Pictures, which is the production company that
Okay.
Brandon created to do these kind of uh, projects that we're just kind of marking them off a list of things that we would love to see done.
Yeah, for sure. So we have about 8 more minutes. Is there anything you want to tell our audience? Do you have any projects you want to talk about? Where can people find you?
Oh yeah, I started out with a blog called Bizarre Los Angeles. Bizarre is in strange. And so you can find me usually by Bizarre Los Angeles. The book uh, is not, you can find used copies of the book on Amazon, but I have an Etsy store, and you can buy, if you want them signed, you can, I have a few that are available to customize that. And you could find the Etsy store through the other social media pages. I give tours of the Alexandria Hotel once a month. They usually sell out within like a week, sometimes within like 48 hours. But it's a cool tour. It's like a 3-hour tour, and I make sure that you've got a brain freeze by the time you leave. You get what you pay for and more. I always try to give you more. And so if you're in LA, that would be a great place, because the Alexandria Hotel was actually the Plymouth Rock where the film industry began. And 1906 hotel. By 1910, Mary Pickford was there. D.W. Griffith by 1913, 1914. Charlie Chaplin was there by 1917. Rudolph Valentino was there. And then in 1920, Hollywood, started to actually develop, and people started to move away from downtown. But the Alexandria was the social center. It was the Rome of the film industry from roughly 1910, definitely by 1915 up to about 1921. And so there's pieces of it that are still extant, lots of stories, and I love showing it off. And I don't even have to talk about the ghost stories before people get the idea of what I'm talking about.
Well, the next time I'm in LA, I'm definitely going to take that tour.
Oh, sure. So yeah, it's like, but I'm always looking for friends. I'm always looking for people sharing their stories with me, and and that kind of thing. And I'm trying to get volume 2 ready for next year.
I was going to ask if there's going to be a volume 2.
Like 10 years. It's just, when the book came out, I just had to mark it, and then I got on the TV show. I had no time to do it, and so now. And so now it's like, okay. Also, the quarantine closed a lot of these places down, and some of them never reopened. So what do you do with those locations? They're worth talking about still, but their future is unclear.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, I think you actually answered a whole bunch of questions that I had prepared as you were speaking. So I don't have
I
any.
told you ahead of time. I'm like that. Just ask me like 2-3 questions and just sit back and let me just blah 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 blah. Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. If you join us next week, we are going to have Steve Crawford on the show. That's going to be super exciting. So sorry Heather could not make it back on, but she will be here next week. So make sure you join us next week for both me and Heather, along with Steve Crawford. Craig, thank you so much for coming on, for chatting with us, for teaching us how to
it's my first time meeting you.
Oh,
so
I know. It was so great meeting you.
It's a pleasure.
Fantastic conversation. And I just want to thank you for the work you do on Haunted Discoveries, but also you're so passionate about your work. And, I'm not a fan of people who gatekeep, and you are one of those people who you want people to have the information. You're not afraid for others to go out there and be the best that they can be, and best researchers, because I think it's so important. As we discussed through the show, we have so much history, so many stories. They're either twisted or they get lost, and it's so important that we bring those stories back to light, because it's important to know history properly. So just want to thank you for all the work that you do.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, one last bit of advice: just don't be afraid to make mistakes.
True.
That can 100%. Freeze you up and get you overthinking and everything. Just not everyone's perfect, whether in the field as investigators. Sometimes you think you've got all the dots connected correctly, and you don't. But don't be afraid to make those mistakes. That's a great way to learn. And I was a terrible paranormal investigator when I first started. Terrible. I was everything.
I'm still learning things. Yeah.
You get better with practice. So, go ahead and make mistakes. That's the best way to learn.
Yep. Absolutely. And Anton says, thank you both. He had questions answered. And Anton, that's exactly why we are here and why Ghosted is here. We are here to answer questions and make a safe space for people who are experiencing paranormal and who want to learn paranormal properly. So thank you, everybody. Again, we will be back next week at 9 p.m. Eastern with another episode of Ghost Education 101. Everybody, have a great night.